Hello, dear beloveds. It's so exciting to be here with you to talk about one of the things that we don't talk about very much in spirituality. I guess it's a taboo, and that's why I really wanted to bring it up, because to me it's the most important conversation that we need to be having. And so much of our spiritual seeking is, if you've spent any time with me, you'll hear me talk about all the time this idea of the new age trinkets and superstitions. And what do I mean when I'm saying that? What I'm really talking about are the things that we do or buy or think we need to have as spiritual seekers that somehow do the work of being a spiritual seeker for us, or that somehow they increase our spirituality. And I call this retail spirituality. It's the idea that we can buy something, or we can, engage in a particular kind of modality or practice, and that somehow that is going to magically increase our spiritual power. Crystals that open our third eye, or drinks that we can consume that are going to give us special magical properties, or crystal beds we can lie on, or whatever it is. It's none of these things are bad per se. They're not bad at all. Nothing is bad except for our thinking making it so. But when we substitute that for the real work of spiritual seeking, of the mystic's path, then we're actually just putting our power outside of ourselves. We are saying, there is something that I can own or possess or buy or read that is going to do the work of awakening me to my truth, my unlimited God self, my unlimited consciousness. And I really want to debunk that right now. And it's a taboo, because we think that if we see someone who seems to be doing all of the things that the spiritual person should do, if they're going to yoga, if they're eating a particular kind of way, whatever you think is the most spiritual way, if they're engaging in practices that seem to denote a person of great spiritual power, then that somehow is enough. And it really isn't. What I would ask is of anybody, if I was going to sit with somebody to learn from them, or if I was going to read their book, or if I was going to engage in any way with a person who claims to be a spiritual seeker, is to say, how much happiness does that person possess? And the reason I would ask that question is because, for me, this is the taboo. The truth of all of our spiritual seeking is this: it means nothing. It is meaningless if it is not transforming your life for the better. If your happiness, if your contentment, if your inner peace is not improved as a result of your mystical seeking, which is always an inside job, by the way, it's not seeking outside of yourself, then we are simply, we're just buying into the new age trinkets and superstitions. This idea that I spoke with the amazing Courtney Olson yesterday, this woman is just so fierce, and she really planted this idea in my head of what I wanted to talk about with you today. She used the term, she's got such a great way with language, of being too woke. As in, she had gone so far down the rabbit hole of, watching David Icke videos and the ideas of the conspiracy theories and this, the reptilian overlords and all of these ideas that are part of the spiritual community, sometimes much more fringe, but sometimes really at the core of what a lot of spiritual people claim to believe. And that she, in fact, had kind of freaked herself out or scared herself away from her spirituality because she'd gone too far down that rabbit hole. And by golly, with the internet, you can certainly do that. The thing is that the more we read, the more we know, the more conspiracies, the more kind of ideas of whether crop circles mean this, or whether aliens mean that, or whether, vaccinations are this, or whether they're that. None of that matters if the quality of your life and the life of your community, of your tribe, is not improved by your spiritual seeking. Then it's just simply moving furniture in a burning building. And let me explain what I mean by that. That comes from A Course in Miracles, that idea that we are upgrading belief systems. So just because you once were a, redneck who believed that shooting animals in the wild was okay, and suddenly now you've awoken to the fact that veganism is the path, and people should only wear bamboo fabrics. it means nothing if the quality of your life has not changed. If your internal state of being is still angry, if you're an angry vegan, if you're an angry, organic eating, bamboo wearing person, then you are no more spiritual. You have simply upgraded a belief system with another belief system. And is it an upgrade? I would say no. I spoke with Courtney about this yesterday, and I was pleased with her response, because it's the topic of my next book, but gets me so excited, which is that everything we believe is actually taking us away from God. So belief is a construct that takes us away from God. So it doesn't matter what you believe. If you're in defense of something, if you're saying this is the way it should be and this is right, and if everybody's not doing what I'm doing, then you are not on the path that I'm on, and you are less than I am, then you are so far away from God in that moment. The thing of spiritual seeking is that it is a solitary path. And for me, that's really exciting, because I love that solitariness. And in solitude where I am least alone, says Lord Byron, you cannot take anyone with you on this path. You cannot actually go into the mystic's cave with a gang. You have to go there on your own. You have to be willing to go and meet your soul in the solitude where your soul resides. And yes, you can come out and you can have support networks, and you can have tribe, and you can have, things that you like to do that make you feel really good, and you can buy a particular kind of spiritual bling. I love my spiritual bling. I haven't got it on today, but I don't go anywhere without my beautiful mandala. None of these things, though, contain the power, and you've heard me say that a lot before as well. So we can think that because we've upgraded our beliefs to a more spiritual belief system, that we're closer to our truth, and none of that is true. The most important quality that you need to cultivate, or is an indication of a cultivated spiritual seeker, is happiness, contentment, inner peace. These qualities are not ephemeral. They don't come and go depending on your external circumstances. They are with you regardless of the external circumstances. And that doesn't mean you don't have bad days, but it means you recover from those bad days very, very quickly. So I would ask you to look to the people that you are ascribing power to, the people that you think might have the magic bullet for you, and say, none of that. There is not a single modality. There's not a single thing that you need to possess outside of you, other than the willingness. Well, no, there's nothing outside of you. What you require is the willingness to go and meet yourself in solitude, because that is where God resides. Your God self resides in the stillness and the silence and the quiet places. And just reading a lot and jumping onto ideas, or trying every single different kind of practitioner or therapy or reader that is not going to get you closer to God if you're not doing the inner work. And the inner work is the work of solitude. So what I'm really saying is, the biggest spiritual taboo that we have is this idea that the spiritual person who knows the most, or is the most well-read, or has the most kind of things of this, or has the most belief systems, the most sophisticated belief systems, or has the most kind of qualifications. That is not how we take the measure of the mystic, of the spiritual seeker. And until we're willing to actually ask the question, is this path increasing my happiness and well-being, then we are really not actually asking the question that is going to change our life. Now, this is a deeply personal thing that I'm sharing with you, because I reached my mid-30s. I had been a spiritual seeker all of my life. I'd had a lot of amazing experiences, and I'd had a lot of knowledge that I'd acquired, and lots of study that I'd done, but I was angry, and I had this rage inside of me. And after the birth of my second child, it seemed to inflame, as often happens when we have children, whether it's hormones or whether we're sleep deprived or whatever it is. And I got very angry with God. And I turned my back on God, and I turned my back on my spiritual seeking, because I could see that none of my seeking was improving the quality of my relationship with the world. I was angry with the world, and I was angry with myself, and I was very mean to myself. And as a result, I was very mean to the people around me. Usually when we have expectations of ourselves that are unrealistic and unkind, we project those expectations onto others, and we cause the perpetuation of our own suffering, because the other is always letting us down. And so I was in that place where nobody or no thing could bring me peace. And I finally was brought to my knees and recognized, through a whole series of events, which you can read about in Spiritually Fierce, and I'll keep it short here, but I recognized that my spiritual seeking had been built on a flawed or faulty foundation, because none of it was bringing me closer to my happiness. And the function and purpose of my life is what God wants for me. And what God wants for me is to be happy. Okay, this is it. There is nothing more complicated than that. So the biggest spiritual taboo is, why are we as spiritual seekers, as a collective, generally so unhappy? Why are we obsessed with our problemness, with the world's problemness? Why are we always trying to fix things? Why are we always pathologizing and looking for the next best modality, the next best therapy, the next best practitioner who's going to try and cure us of whatever ails us, whether it's our past life that's causing us all this energetic attachment, or whether it's a block in our heart chakra, or whether it's this thing or that thing. It's all bullshit. What we need to start asking ourselves is, why are we denying ourselves what God wants for us, which is to know our own happiness? My function is to know and to enact what God wants for me, and what God wants for me is my happiness. There is only one way to get to the happiness that God wants for us. It is not a fleeting happiness. It is to surrender belief. It is to surrender all of your belief, to reach the place where all that exists is the one mind, and that one mind has only one thought, and that one thought is that only love is real. And anything that is not in congruence with that thought is fear, is an illusion. And until we are willing to see that the work of the spiritual seeker is not to be some kind of clappy, happy, chanting, meditating, green smoothie drinking, retreat going yogi, but to actually meet your fear, face it head on and say, bring it. I am ready to be unafraid. I am ready to meet the illusion, because I know my truth is what is in the one mind. And the one mind says all is love. That is my truth. I'm going to stop pathologizing my stuff. I'm going to stop looking for the reasons why I am not love. And I'm going to start showing up to that truth and accept no compromises. And that is the biggest spiritual taboo, is that belief or ideas or dogma or anything that is masquerading all these new age spiritual trinkets and superstitions have nothing to do with the path of the spiritual seeker. It is my willingness to know that I am unbroken, I am healed, nothing has occurred to me in the level of the dream, at the level of the illusion, that could reduce my power, my potency, and I must be willing to hold my vision on that goal, on that one single point of focus, is to remember that I am God. That if that word doesn't work for you, replace it with infinite consciousness, unlimited consciousness. I am not a problem to be fixed. And until you put that at the center of all of your spiritual seeking, and you don't go looking for the problems, but you simply meet whatever fear rises, the way a mother helps a child meet a nightmare, you just say, okay, it's a dream. Let's wake up from this now. That is what being woke, as to use, I won't use this swear word in case there's children listening, it is the school holidays. To be awakened on this path is not to know what conspiracy theory is hot, or what the deeper meaning of that is, or what it is to know yourself as God and to hold nothing back from that truth. And yes, that means you're going to have to put down your victim, and yes, that means you're going to have to take full responsibility for your response to the world, and stop saying it's because you said that to me that I can't be happy. That you no longer live in the paradigm that something outside of you has any impact on your happiness, because happiness is a God-born right, and it was born into you just as it was born into me. And if my life is not a living, breathing example of that happiness, then that's where I go meet that fear, and I eliminate that fear. And if you want to know how, come and join me tomorrow, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. The science of intuition is going to teach you the true nature of intuition, which is your greatest tool to meet your fear and to know yourself as God. I teach people to think like the universe, and I want to spend 30 minutes with you tomorrow to join together in that collective energy of getting fearless, because fearlessness is the work that we need to do. To become fearless is to awaken in the dream and to reclaim our birthright, our sovereignty, which is that we were never broken in the first place. Thank you for letting me do what I love so very much, and I'll share all the links that I've mentioned here, and have the most beautiful day.